OrgChart Professional is an easy way to make organization charts. Watch this video as we show you how. Charts can be made by drag and drop, or they can be made by importing data from any data source. We'll proceed and explain how. Big benefit to using this program is that you can create your charts automatically from data, such as a spreadsheet or a database. You create the chart once, and then as time goes on, any updates to your data are automatically reflected in the chart. So if you have an organization that is created in, say, the current month, you can create that just by import, and then as subsequent months go on, there's updates to either your HR data or payroll data, then you can simply update the data and the chart will change. So it's a colossal return on investment for this technology and the amount of time that it saves, plus it ensures accuracy. So what I'm going to do now is give you an example, a tour of the application. We're currently looking at version 6, and if you look at the interface here on the left-hand side, we have what are called the chart design elements. This is where a chart can be created or modified, or we can have other aspects added to it, such as things like borders, backgrounds, special coloring. So the other things that are interesting here is that you've got the ability to add auto text features. These will be variables that could be changed or vary from page to page, displaying different elements from your data, such as page naming, head count, span of control, calculations that dynamically change with each page. So let's go ahead first of all. So we chart design elements on the left, and then we have chart formatting options at the top. So if we look at the example chart that we have an individual at the top with 5 people joined. So the different styles that you can have for chart arrangement are available above here. So as I click through any of these, we can see that the format changes. So these are all programmatically driven changes for formatting. Okay, vertical 2-column, vertical hanging right, vertical hanging left. Just do everybody horizontal. That's another way of doing it. Another feature, as we're looking at a finished chart here, is every individual that has additional people reporting to them, we have a subchart or what is called a division. So in this case, the arrow that I'm clicking on here takes us to a separate page where the individuals who are direct reports are shown. And I can continue drilling throughout the organization chart this way. Okay, so we can drill down and we can drill up simply by clicking on these calculated arrows here. All right, so that's just a very quick example of what we're looking at. Furthermore, if we look down below, we'll see that there's data associated with the chart. So the program is a wonderful blend of both the data and the visual. So any given position, we can click on the individual. We can see their record in particular light up at the bottom. I'll dock this at the right. This is a preview of each person where we can see all of the data elements that were imported, or we can create a view that would show only a subset of them. And as I click on different individuals, you can see at the right-hand side that their details are being shown. So we have the data, we have the visual, we can manipulate the visual. The other thing is, for any one of these boxes, you can decide which fields you want to show and which ones you want to hide. It's your choice. So that's just a quick view of one particular chart. I'd like to take you through the process so you can see how a chart can be created by importing data. So I've got some sample data that we'll look at here. It's a small organization. It has 43 people in it. First of all, I have a number of columns in my data here. It's important for you to note that you have complete flexibility as to what data you bring into the program and what order the columns occur in and what you name these columns. There's really nothing that's required except that you have to have a means for a hierarchy. And normally that would be 2 columns of data that would be used. One column of data, for example, employee name, would identify people uniquely. You need a unique identifier or a key. And in my example here, I'm going to use name because I'm working with a small organization. In a larger organization, you would probably use something like a position ID or an employee ID to identify people. So in my example, I'm going to use employee name, so that describes who I am, and then we need a corresponding column of data, which I have in column J here, called supervisor, and that is who do I report to. So if I have those 2 pieces of information, who I am and who I report to, that's all I need for building a network hierarchy that is going to have everybody connected, and we can subdivide as we need to create separate chart pages for different groups. So whether you use name or whether you use position ID and supervisor position ID, or whether you use an employee ID, all of those things are possible ways. So apart from that, the program really doesn't care what columns you're using or what you call them. So this is my example data. I'll walk through a little bit of it. We have other things such as a title, a department, a date of hire. This is an interesting column here. It's called is assistant. You will notice that in OrgCharts frequently, an assistant hangs differently under a manager than a regular team member. Assistants normally hang to the right of a manager. For example, I'll show you an example here. I have these different objects. If I were to grab an assistant and drag it on top of the manager here, you'll see the assistant shows up underneath in a different position, whereas a team manager would show up directly below. Okay, so that's an example of an assistant. And my point here is that if you have such a column and you put a value in such as yes, we can map that so that you can have assistants that will be pre-designated from your data. I've got other examples here where you salary, a location, and then a photograph. So if you wanted to have people's photos, what you need would be the name of the image file, and you would keep it in a folder that you could direct the program to, or there'd be a path statement that would go to it. So there's really no special naming convention required. It just needs to be a supported image type, JPEG, GIF, PNG, BMP, so forth. So that'll get you the photographs. Further to the right here, we have dotted line reporting. So if you have an alternate hierarchy that you want to use, such as you have primary managers, which we already talked about, but then if you have other people that an individual reports to, we would call that dotted line. So in my example here, I have 2 columns for dotted line managers. So an individual, in this case, I have some people reporting to up to 2 additional managers in this data set. The program's limit is 10. So you can have an individual who reports to up to 10 dotted line managers, but practically speaking, I don't think I've ever seen more than 2 or 3 in typical use. So that's dotted line reporting, and then as I'm proceeding to the right, I have some examples of HR data. It could be diversity, years in position, age, gender, status, some performance data. None of those are required. It's just the example that I have. And then I have a column here that I would like to explain, which is performance rating. There's no standard that we have for performance rating. This is simply an example so I can illustrate how we can do heat mapping off of a data value within an OrgChart box. So I've got performance rating, and it's a scale from 1 to 5, with 5 being excellent and 1 being poor. And I'll show you as I walk through the application what you can do with the conditional coloring or heat mapping of boxes based on data. As I proceed to the right, there's other things that you could have, things like a job description in here. If you have a link to a document on the web or your intranet, you could have that kind of a reference. And then an email address. Okay, I've got other pieces of information in here, but they're really not necessary to explain for the sake of what I'm going to show you. So those are the example columns we have in a data set. And now let me go into the application. Okay, and what I'll do here is look at the left-hand side under my file menu. There's three important wizards here. One is import to bring in raw data so that a chart can be automatically formatted. The other is publish, how to share this information. Export, which is taking any of the data that has gone into the chart database, plus any special calculations, and being able to send that out to mediums such as Excel or a database. There's other things I could talk about, but let's just go through these three wizards right now. To import, it brings up a wizard that will ask me a few questions. First, what kind of data set do I want to bring in? And we've already said that it would be a Microsoft Excel file. So other possibilities would be things like any database where I have the ODBC connector. It could go through Active Directory. It could go through SQL Server, Oracle, Access, tab delimited text files. There'd be a number of possibilities here. But let's just use the Excel file, for example. And I'm going to browse to the location for that file. Here we go. And there's just a couple of screens that we're going to see here. The first one is going to verify that we have the number of records and columns anticipated. I won't go into this detail, but if you wanted to, you could build a query and it could filter out particular records from a larger data set if there's people that you didn't want to chart. The next step here is to determine and communicate the hierarchy. And in my example, each position is determined by what is employee name, which is what I have in my data set, and the reports to a supervisor. Okay, so based on that, the program actually guessed what the hierarchy was, and off on the right-hand side, we see a preview of the hierarchy. So the program, as we're importing data, there's a number of diagnostics that it has to tell you if there's anything that's peculiar or incorrect about your data, and tells you exactly where to fix it. So we see the primary hierarchy just fine. This is an optional step that I'm going to go through. You normally wouldn't have to do this, but if you're interested in dotted line reporting, then I would do a mapping at this point. So we're using employee name as the key, would report to dotted line manager number 1, and again here, employee name can also report to dotted line manager 2. Okay, so that would satisfy any dotted line or alternate hierarchy that I wanted to establish in this chart. So the next step is to determine which fields I want to show. So there's a column here called visible, okay, and a check mark means that I'm going to show that field in a box. I'll push this to the right for a second. If we take a look in the background at an OrgChart box, we see we have a name and a title. So I'll do the same thing, all right? So where it says employee name, it's checked off as visible. Let's come down to title and check that off as well. All right, so those are two fields I want to show. There's other fields. I'm not going to show them. They'll be available for any data reporting that I want to do, or I can decide to show them later. But right now, I'm only going to show those two fields. And the other thing you can see on the right-hand side here is the ability for us to add fields that would be maintained within the data set in the chart program. Also, predefined data fields, things like a head count or a span of control. We also have median and average span of control, levels above, levels below, so a work breakdown or an organizational breakdown structure. All those things are available. but I'm going to skip that and just go to the next step here. And this is the final step, which is how do you want to paginate? Now, the idea here is we have the opportunity to take this larger hierarchy that has several levels within it. And what we could do is break it up so that each level within the hierarchy has its own direct reports, and anybody else would be shown on subsequent pages. We could do that. Or we could say, do not create any divisions or subcharts, which means everybody's going to show up on one page. If it's a small piece of paper and you have a lot of people, you probably don't want that because it'll be very crowded, difficult to read. Or if you're using a large plotter, that would also be a good reason to select that option because in this case, you would be able to have the entire organization visible on one sheet of paper. But most of the time, you're going to want to break it down. And so I'm going to break it down at levels. Management level, I'll have 2 levels of management on the first page, and then I'll have 2 levels of management on each page thereafter as I drill in. I can change this later, but the program is just asking for some defaults as we get started here. So I'll go ahead and select that, next to next, and finish, and here we have a basic chart. All right? Now, this chart is raw right now. So any one of these individuals that I click on, you can see I click on that arrow, it takes me right into the individuals reporting to that person. So we see all of the structure is there. Now there's things we can do to make this chart more attractive. Let's go ahead and give this chart some margin. I'll go right here, change the top margin to like a 50 points. Okay, so that balances it out a little nicer. The other thing is if I don't want to have this 5 people wide, I could just say, well, let's use 4 columns. That would be possible as well. Now, on the left-hand side, there's also something called predefined styles. And if I look through this, I can see that there are a whole series of little formats or little templates that I made previously about things that I personally like. So I've got one here that says OWS Blue. It's asking me to map fields, which is fine. Okay, so there it is. I was able to create an application of that, but maybe I want to apply it to everybody. So let's go back to that and click right here. And that changes everybody on the chart now, okay? So as I click through the chart, you can see that every person now has this particular style. Now I'm also looking at the number of fields that are showing. I see salary showing. Well, it may be that you don't want to see salary. So what could you do? Can you customize that? Yes, you can. So I'll just right-click on this and go to Properties, and I'll see the salary field is showing, and I'll simply uncheck it to turn it off. Now I have a scope statement here, so I can apply it either to this particular object, or I can do it to the entire chart. So one of the benefits here is that the program makes it very easy for you to make global changes or select changes with just a couple of clicks. So here we have the setup now where we are not showing the salary figure. We're just showing name and title. Okay? And the other thing is, if you wanted to, you could say, you know what, I want to have the name on top and the title below. You can do that as well. All right, so I'll do that, and I'll change that for the entire chart. Okay. So we now see a chart that is formatted. Let's take a look at some other features that are very important here. One of which would be the resynchronization. So while I'm looking at the person at the top whose name is Michael, his title says CEO. Let's take a look at the data file here. Okay, so here's Michael's record. It says CEO. Let's change it to President. So the idea here is we have a one-way synchronization. changes that are made in this Excel file can be pushed into the org chart, and only the data is going to be changed. It's not going to reformat. It's not going to change colors. It's not going to distort. And the command that's used for that would be the resync data command. By clicking on this, we're going to see that Michael's title should change from CEO to President. All right, so we see that the title changed. None of the background information on anybody else changed. And furthermore, there's an audit trail that shows up. And the audit trail is great because it's time-stamped, okay, with the date and time. And it tells us not only which records have been changed, but which fields within those records, and the old value and the new value. Okay, so any given point in time, when there's updates made to your source data and you resynchronize, you can know exactly what happened. So it'll also tell you anybody who was deleted, anybody who was added, anybody who was moved to another manager, anybody whose data was simply updated in place. All of this is given to you through the audit trail. So other things that would be good to notice as we're looking at this, and I'm going to change this interface here for a second. I'm going to move my preview details to the left. Let's also go in and see what this looks like at each one of the pages. Okay, so I can drill through the organization. Perfect. And then let's also look over at the different page layouts. We've got a background page called a master page, just as you would have in a Microsoft Office application. By clicking on this, I've got a background that I can dress up so that it will show through on every page within the organization structure. So let's just say if I had some detail I wanted here, so this would be the say this is the organization plan for 2014. Other things we can do would be add a logo. Just drag an image out here. Put that in the upper left-hand corner. And in addition, there's other things such as auto text fields that are available. One would be like a division title, which I'll make that bold and I'll make it a little larger, 14 point. And then any other field that we want to bring out that might be a summary type field. So let's just look at something called headcount. Okay, we could put that out here as well. Headcount, or if you had budget summaries, things like that, that would be something that you could include as well. So now, let me dress this up first of all. It's going to okay, as soon as I give this a name, we see that show up in the right-hand corner. Any one of these people that I drill into their details, we see information taken from the manager, okay? So that piece of information in the upper right-hand corner is dynamically being calculated from the manager's record. If I want to, I can also change that, and I can say, let's rename the divisions. Instead of using the employee name for these division titles, let's go ahead and clear that out, and instead, from my data set, I'm going to use the department field, because I had that on my Excel when I brought it in, and then I'll add a little bit of text. Okay, as I do that, then we can see this changes to the engineering department, and as I drill through, here we are into HR, here we are into, we have an ops group, okay? So what this is showing me now is that I can make the change in one place, and throughout the entire organization, I'm going to be able to have these titles automatically generated. So I'm going to save this again. While I'm looking at this also, I would like to change the text here. I would like to have this be bold, have it a little bit bigger, and I think the other sizing for the title could be smaller. So I'll use my paintbrush for that. The paintbrush is great because I can bring up a dialog that says, hey, I want to just do this one box at a time, or I can say propagate that style throughout the entire chart. And indeed it did. It made everybody the same. Okay. Now let's take a look at another example here where we can publish this kind of information. So if I go to my publishing wizard, it gives me choices. Interactive PDF is a very powerful way to share this information. Or you can use PowerPoint, or we can create a website. So interactive PDF, let's go through that first. We have the ability to select a segment of the organization, or we can do the entire organization, which is what I'm going to do right now. If you so desire, you could have an individual page for each person, but that could add a lot of pages to your PDF. And then here in this case, I will add an index, table of contents, page numbers, and we'll have the links within. All right, so here is an example. I'm looking at the table of contents with the links, okay? So every one of these links is something I can click on. It takes me into the organization, and I can click on any one of these links here, and it just continues to drill through the org chart. Furthermore, if I want to find somebody, if I'm looking for somebody whose name is Hollis, okay, so this is a search and find that I was able to do, and it identified the individual. If I searched again, we'd find that person in the index. So the great thing here is that we can click on any one of these links. They're all active to take us to navigate through the chart. And if we find a position, for example, that you wanted to get some feedback on, you could send somebody the PDF document. And because it's using Adobe Reader or Adobe Acrobat, your preference, you could add a sticky note to it. And you could just say, hey, give me some feedback. And so you can say, this position, this position will be filled in February 2014. Okay. So, and by saving that and sending it back to the originator, all they have to do is check on the left-hand side here, and they could see where the sticky notes are within the entire document. Okay, and go ahead and update source data as necessary. So that's a quick example of how the PDF document would work. Another example of what you could do is do the PowerPoint. So let's go ahead and publish this to PowerPoint. Publish. Over here, select the PowerPoint option. And what you're looking at are, every one of these is a screenshot, actually. These are not PowerPoint objects that we're creating. So the only place that you can make updates to your org chart are going to be within the application. So here we are. We have a complete list of all the slides. And if you look as I drill into this, you can see this is a high-resolution graphic. This is all enhanced metafile graphics. Now, the links don't work in PowerPoint, but we do have the entire chart available in a deck, and it comes complete with the table of contents and the index. The only way in which these links work is if we're in some kind of a presentation mode. If we're in full presentation mode, then those links will work for the index, the table of contents, but that's it. So that's an example of how PowerPoint can work for you. Okay? And if you don't like how something's turning out, then just delete the PowerPoint, go back to the application, make the changes, and regenerate it. I'll show one last example of the publishing output. That would be the Flash. Okay, so here we are at Publish, and we'll look for a Flash output. Current chart. And we'll browse to find a folder where we can put this. And I decide which fields I want visible. So for example, I'd like to see the supervisor for each person. I'd like to see a photograph. And let's see, supervisor, photograph, employee name. And perhaps there's some form of contact, like an email address. And then I'll just move the photo up a little bit. So that'll be individual detail for each person. So let's bring this up for a moment. I'm looking at it in Chrome right now. So the idea here then is these links are active. I can click on them and I can navigate throughout the organization. I can click on any box and I see the details for that person. I can click on their manager and navigate to that person. I can see that person by clicking on View Chart. I can also search for people. There's a search option here as well. So if I wanted to find that gentleman by the name of Hollis, I will search for in which whatever field names I have published or included in this publishing method, and then I can just do a find and we can go straight to that person. Okay. So if I wanted to email him, I could do that, or if I wanted to see his boss, I could do that. So it's a very convenient way to get this information out. And then the other thing is on the side, we can see that there is a means by which we could navigate through the different branches of the organization. So that's something that's available to you. This is Flash, and very, very easy to deploy. One thing I should also mention is that the entire process from running the program to doing its resynchronization and automatic updates, publishing the outputs, that can all be scheduled to run without any operator intervention. So if you have updates that you want to do once a week or once a day or once a month, you can set up a script that we provide you with that will allow you to run the program as often as you like without any operator intervention and do the updates and create the outputs. So that's just a quick overview of how this works. Now, perhaps something else that would be good for you to see would be the analytic functions of the program. Under the File menu, there's something we have called markers. Markers allow us to do a heat mapping, and they're based on rules. So the first thing I'll do is I'll click on the rules here, and if you remember, we talked about the performance rating, which is right here, this column here, performance rating with values from 1 to 5. And everybody's got a rating, so I'm going to create a rule to recognize people who are excellent performers. So the criteria for that is going to be the performance rating is equal to 5. That's how I know somebody is excellent. They'll meet this qualification. There'll be another rule that's created here called good. And those who have a rating of good would be the performance rating that is greater than 2 and we'll also say the performance rating is less than 5. So what I'm showing you here is that you have the ability to do compound rules to recognize a condition. And then finally, we'll come up with the poor performers. A poor performance rating would be if we have a performance rating that is less than 3. So here I have 3 rules that have been created with these different conditions based on the data that I imported into that performance rating field. Now for each one of these, for poor performers, I have to assign a color, and now that could be a color or a flag. In this case, I'll give it a pink color. Good performers, I will assign a light gray, and excellent performers will get a light green here. So there it is. Those 3 colors we should be seeing as we go through this. You know, there's one other one that I think I would like to add as I'm thinking about it, and that is for those who don't have a performance rating. Let's go ahead and look at Manage Rules again. We'll have one that's called Not Rated. And the condition for that will be a performance rating that is equal to 0, or a performance rating that is empty. And I see that the way this is set up, it's and, so I'm going to toggle the logic, so it's going to be either one of those. So that's another rating that I have. So based on that, if it's not rated, I'll attach a marker, and I will color that one. Oh, let's just give it a light yellow if they're not rated. Now I can apply all of these markers now, and it's going to color everyone in the chart. Okay? So here I can see someone who's not rated. I can see an excellent performer, and I see some others. But we might not know that unless we actually went and established some kind of a legend. And so very conveniently, there's a legend image, and you could create legend items one at a time, or you could simply just say, we've got them already established in the markers, so let's just use that. So there it is. I'm going to put that on the chart. Now every page that we're looking at gives us a view of what were we thinking when we established these colors. Okay? And keep in mind, any time that the data changes and we resynchronize, it'll apply these markers if we like, and these boxes will be recolored. So let me save this again, and then we'll go through a little model exercise. Okay, so right here, we have a situation where we have an individual who's a poor performer and one who's an excellent performer. And we may be looking to replace this individual. This individual also has 3 people, direct reports. We could also see that if we clicked on this little View in Place indicator. It's a wonderful tool for us to see individuals in the context of a higher branch of the organization. Okay. But in this case, I'm going to right-click, and we're going to go to this thing called Replace Person. And what I'm looking for, I'm going to do an advanced search for people who are excellent performers. And I'll just say, find me excellent performers. Well, I'm looking within the current division. I could look within the entire organization. But as long as I'm within this division, that's fine. And I'll click OK. Now, here it's going to give me the opportunity to take Rob, who's an excellent performer, and put him in Roy's position. So by the time I'm done, Roy's going to be out of a job. Rob will be in Roy's job. Rob's current job is going to be vacated, And the new position that he's in, he's going to have 3 subordinates. So here we go. We get to decide what fields we bring along as well. So when I do that, I do want to take the performance rating with me. So we're taking the person's name, their date of hire, all their personal information we're going to take with. So if I OK this, so here is what we have currently. Okay, so I've got Rob, who has now moved into that position of the design manager for cloud. Okay, we've got a vacant position over here. In fact, I'll even type that. I could have had a rule that would have done that as well. And we've got Roy, who's out of a job. So the wonderful thing about this situation is now that I've got a strong management. Let me rerun my rules for a second. Run my markers. Okay. So now that I've rerun my markers, I can see that the colors are updated again. Now I can take these positions. Let's say I've got a vacant position and I want to move it. Now that I've got a strong manager, let's take the individual contributors and put them within that person's group. So now if I look into Rob's group, I can see the individuals that have been transferred there. And actually, let's create a 4-column method of being able to see this. That makes it a little easier. Okay? And then going up to the top, if necessary, we could go ahead and remove this individual, go ahead and just reformat the chart. So now you can see we've just done some organizational design or rearrangement based on a performance of an individual. So let's save this as a different name now. I'm going to save this as like a version 2. And then let's go over to do a comparison, because we had a before picture and an after picture. So under Tools, there's something called a Compare tool. By clicking on Compare tool, it'll allow me to take our original file and compare it to that after picture after we did our modeling. Okay. By selecting both of those projects, I can now do a side-by-side comparison. And maybe it'd be easier if I also narrow this down to say I only want to see the differences. So here are only the differences. If I look down here, I see on row 9, Roy is in red. And on the right-hand side in the newer file, he doesn't exist. So red is... if I come down to row 10, it's empty, but on the right it exists with a person whose name is vacant. And it's in green, so that's an add. And then blue, we see Rob has a blue title, which means that's a change. So anybody deleted is red, anybody added is green, anybody is changed for any field whatsoever, it's going to be blue. And if I were to scroll to the right, I would see that all these other people that we had moved, those have new managers. They were previously reporting to Roy, they're now reporting to Rob. And then there's another reason why other things are blue. It's probably because of budget amounts and so forth, because we're doing budget roll-ups. All of this can be exported to Excel, which I'll do here just for a moment. Okay, so all this data, you can work with this separate tabs for the before picture and the after picture. You can do their comparisons, and there's also a comparison summary that's available. So it's a great way for you to compare 2 charts without having to stare them down box by box. This is a very easy mechanized way of doing it. And you have both the audit trail, okay, which came from the resynchronization, and you also have the compare tool that allows you to, using the data, the automation that's in the application, to do this wonderful comparison. Other things that would be good for you to know as we're looking at this is that we broke this down so that it was only 2 managers per level. There's no reason why you couldn't decide to change that, and let's just say we wanted to release some of these divisions. Okay, so you have ways of expanding this chart. It's just that you might want to find alternate ways of making this easier to look at. The more people that you put on a page, it can get to be kind of busy. And you'll also see the dotted line reporting that we had imported, that's showing up as well. Other ways that you can economize the view on this is to not show photos. So that would be possible. We could just select, right-click, go to Properties, and where we have photo, just uncheck it. And we could say, you know what, let's just do that for the entire chart. Okay, and all of a sudden it makes it just, easier for you to read. Okay, so the program is really working off of the zooming method. The more people that you put on it, the more it's going to zoom, unless you decide to go to a larger sheet of paper. So those are the significant functions of the application. You've got a lot of data possibilities to work with here. Down below, we'll see that we have the natural outline for the organization. You can also turn the hierarchy off. And so down below, you could sort either by name, by position ID, by title. And the other thing is, if you wanted to, also to be able to do searches by things like, show me all of the excellent people within the organization. Okay, so let's do a find all. So here it is. Here's all of the people below in the organization with a performance rating of a 5. Or if you wanted to find who are the people in the organization with a poor rating, okay, there we have them. Or who are the people that are not rated. Okay, we've got a couple of people, open position and a vacant position, which makes sense. So other possibilities are within reports. There's a report generator. There's the ability to export summary fields on all of this data. And the help function is available to you through a PDF. And perhaps one of the easier things to do here is to watch the online tutorial, because it will take you step by step through how you operate every one of these functions. Hope that helps. Give us a call at OfficeWorks Software, which would be support@officeworksoftware.com. Glad to answer questions anytime about the OrgChart applications.